All right, man. Here we go. We're going to see how many people are interested in something like this. But amidst all the absolute insanity swirling around the WNBA right now. Wow. Hey, do y'all remember, real quick, y'all remember how naive we were back in the day? First, Caitlin Clark entering the WNBA, and we just thought, hey, we're going to get to enjoy watching Caitlin Clark play at the next level. And then 2024 happened, and we thought, well, it's a rookie year. All the insanity is going to die down. We'll get back to some normalcy, and we'll get to 2025, and we'll be able to just watch Caitlin Clark play basketball. Yeah, it hasn't quite worked out that way, and it seems to actually be getting worse and worse, not by the day, but by the minute. By the way, and I will bring that news to you as soon as I possibly can, Kathy Engelbert still huddled with the biologist to try and figure out what a woman is. But anyway, to this video we're going to talk a little basketball. I'm going to talk about a statistic, about a number. I've talked about it here and there and mentioned, but I don't think I ever actually did a video talking about it. So, yeah, we're going to get into some numbers. I'm going to talk to you about this one. It's not something that you see widespread. I mean, as far as I know, I can't even remember. I've known about it for a while. Can't remember exactly where I originally heard it from, but I just love it within context, and we'll get to that in a moment. So I want to break it down for you a little bit. Welcome back to the channel. Thank you for being here. Truly appreciate all of your support. Hope you all having a fantastic day. Shout out to the 19. Without all of you, this channel doesn't exist. Quick favor, like, comment, subscribe, hype on mobile, notification bell, and there's other stuff, I'm sure. But let's dig in. So, you may have heard me talk about PPS, points per shot. All right. So, when the three pointer got into basketball, and, originally it was kind of like it wasn't a big part of the game. You all know all that. I don't want to go into the history, but of course, one of the things was, well, we have an idea of what a good shooter is from two. If we're just looking at their shooting percentage, what is it from three? What is that number? Is 35% good? Is it bad? We don't know. So then you got into the effective field goal percentage, where you kind of balance the two, because you get into the fact that there are 3 points for a three-pointer and two for a two. So it's like, well, if you're shooting 50% from two, you can equal those points by shooting 33% from three. Now there's other stuff involved, obviously, because it's not the same number of shots. You get rebounds and a whole thing. And then you got total shooting percentage, which tried to get, free throws in there as well. And they all have their usefulness. But one that I like, that I think is just a much cleaner number, that does a great job, I think, of pulling them all together, is points per shot. And it is simply a player's total points divided by the number of field goal attempts the player has taken. Because why? Well, you get that 3 point and 2 point thing in there, right? Obviously, the more threes made, it's worth three instead of two. You get all of that. But then you also get free throw attempts. How often does a player get to the line? And then, of course, how many free throws do they make? So in the bigger scheme, it's okay. Well, we know when they take 10 shots in a game, that's going to generate usually, say, 12 points if their PPS is 1.2 per every shot that they take. And it just gives you a cleaner number to compare. Now, I will say this, 'cause I say this a lot with statistics, is every statistic is context matters, and it's a tiny, tiny part of a big picture. Now, some statistics, obviously more important, they tell you more things than other statistics, but still, they all have their flaws, they all have their drawbacks, and they all can be used within a greater context when you start taking other numbers and other pieces of the puzzle and bringing them all together. But for me, this is one of those quality numbers that makes it a lot easier when you look at what how effective a shooter is, or how effective a scorer is, and what their total game looks like. Because obviously, if someone is just shooting threes, that's going to impact that number, and you'll see that. Can they shoot the three and the two well? Can they get to the rim? When they get to the rim, can they draw fouls, right? That type of thing. Obviously, in many ways, a player like Asia Wilson has a huge advantage because of the number of times that she gets to the free throw line. And in fact, I just want to go through a few numbers to give you an idea. And I was putting this together. I can't believe this is probably not going out to like August 9th or 10th, but I've been putting it together at the very beginning of August. So I used July and I used three players because you had Asia Wilson and Kelsey Mitchell, player of the month for July. And of course, I'm going to use Caitlin Clark because, well, it's Caitlin Clark. But also, there was a lot of, well, why is Kelsey Mitchell getting July when it really should be Caitlin Clark? So if you're looking at just July, okay? Kelsey Mitchell's point per shot for July was 1.47. Okay. Asia Wilson's 1.82, which is insane. And all the times I've been looking at these numbers with these players, and I haven't done every single player and this and that, but for at least a decent stretch of time, like an entire month, I've never seen it that high. Right, her season is 1.48, just to give you an idea what her July was like. Caitlin Clark, 1.73. And by the way, her season, 1.43, slightly lower than Asia's. Kelsey Mitchell's season, 1.43. I mean, Kelsey basically had a July in terms of her production as a scorer and shooter, not much different than the rest of the season for her. Of course, Asia, 7.9 free throw attempts, Caitlin at 6.6, which is actually, I think, where she is for the entire season. Now, I will say this too, those numbers, I think the numbers for the WNBA in general are much higher this season. I think there has been a lot in terms of freedom of movement where you're getting a lot more fouls called, not just on drives, but also non-shooting fouls. But what does that do? It puts teams in the penalty sooner, right? So free throws on non-shooting fouls are happening more, which, by the way, I think is why, even though she's still not being officiated properly, obviously, at times Caitlin is getting those calls. So she's getting to the free throw line a little more, not necessarily because she's getting calls on shots, but because she has the ball so much, she's getting called for fouls on the floor, but teams are going into the penalty sooner, right? So calls against other players for the Fever, right? Like Kelsey Mitchell getting calls can indirectly help Caitlin Clark get to the line more, right? It's not just about Caitlin getting fouls called more for her when she's shooting, because I think in 2024 she averaged like 4.5 free throws a game. It was under 4 last year, and it's like 6.5, 6.6 this season. Of course, Asia, her lowest free throw total average per game the last 4 seasons is 7.2. That's her low. Absolutely insane. Caitlin Clark, just to give you an idea for her career, and this is why I say you look at the difference in numbers. Caitlin Clark for her career is 1.33. Asia Wilson's 1.38, right? They're very similar. I remember Asia Wilson's was number one when I did a video back in 2024 on Caitlin Clark when she didn't make the Olympic team, and I was doing deep dives on her compared to the other WNBA guards, and her point per shot. That's, I think, when I first really mentioned it to people, was much higher than all the other guards and pretty much all the other players except Asia Wilson's. By the way, Kelsey Mitchell, her career, 1.25, which isn't bad. Oh, by the way, that's actually higher because in her time with Caitlin Clark, her points per shot since Caitlin Clark arrived, 1.35, that's another reason I want to talk about this because I don't think it's fair. It's not mentioned enough when people want to boost Kelsey Mitchell and talk about her being the best player on the Fever and all this crap. Kelsey Mitchell is a good player. Kelsey Mitchell is she's a great scorer. Okay. But that's pretty much all she does. But let's be real about that. Kelsey Mitchell's quality of shot this year and the defensive attention she gets is so unbelievably aided by having Caitlin Clark on the court, and that is not talked about enough. Caitlin Clark doesn't get any benefit from anybody else on the court. They still throw multiple players at her. They throw the best defenders at her. Caitlin Clark has to work harder than anyone for every single thing she gets. But players like Aaliyah Boston and Lexi Hull and Sophie Cunningham and Monique Billings and Kelsey Mitchell, They all benefit from having Clark, and they all have a much easier time scoring because the quality of the shot they get to take is elevated. It is higher by having Caitlin Clark. Therefore, their numbers, their efficiency numbers, shooting percentages, points per shot, those things should go up having Caitlin Clark on the court with them. It is important to understand that Caitlin Clark is one of those rare players like a Larry Bird, where teammates are better because that player is on the court. And I don't just mean the team is better, because obviously, in general, unless you have complete disarray with the chemistry of a team, when a great player is added to a team, the team overall is going to perform better. Not the same thing as a great player who also, by virtue of who they are and how they play, make the team better, make their teammates better. I got to figure out a better way to understand that. It's kind of like if you know, you know, one of those things y'all hardcore sports fans understand what I'm trying to say, but I really got to dial in on how to make that better so even newbies to a sport understand what it is I mean when I talk like that. Well, by the way, Lexi Hulls at 1.22 this season. She was 1.36 back in 2024 when Caitlin Clark came in as a rookie. I didn't, last year Caitlin only played the 13 games, so it doesn't matter a whole lot. But I just wanted to I thought it would be a little shorter. Sorry about that. Hopefully, y'all are still here. I just want to do a quick video on this stat because in terms of shooting and scoring, I obviously, it's within a limited context. There are a lot of other things like what I just mentioned with quality of shot. I think it is a good, solid number that makes it easy to compare players as opposed to trying to figure things out with how they're shooting from here and there and all those other things because it incorporates all of it, right? It incorporates the three and the mid game and getting all the way to the rim and drawing fouls and that sort of thing and getting to the line and making your free throws as well. Side note on that, Caitlin's got a little mental block right now that she's got to figure out with some of the misses she's had from the free throw line because she's a phenomenal free throw shooter. But anyway, and just give you an idea, is kind of wild. I just had to point out because, and I really didn't do it because it's such a dramatic difference between Caitlin and Kelsey in July, even though Kelsey got play. Think about that though. I'm going to say it. No, not a knock on Kelsey Mitchell, but I really think there were reasons that was given to her and not Caitlin that weren't basketball because 1.47, not much different than her season, and she doesn't do anything else. Whereas Caitlin Clark, who does everything else, 1.73. 1.73 and Asia's 1.882 for at least 7, 8, 9, 10 games for a month. Um, and Caitlin played 8 of the 10 games, so people don't give me that, oh, injury stuff. Those are by far the two highest numbers I have ever seen. This year, for the most part, we're seeing with the Stars in the 1.3 to 1.5 range. It was a little lower going into this season. But yeah, like I said, Caitlin 1.33 for her career, but 1.43 this year. Kelsey Mitchell 1.25 for her career, 1.43 this year. Asia 1.38 for her career, 1.48 this year, right? So there's been a little boost. So there has been a change in some of the officiating overall in terms of freedom of movement. But anyway, I just wanted to deep dive it. I don't know if anyone really cares. Hopefully you did. If you did enjoy it, let me know below. Like, comment, subscribe. I will talk to you later.